Welcome back to the Road to National series. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through an upper max workout. So my max effort variation for this week was a banded board press. Now I've been doing a lot of banded board presses recently, just with different levels of band tension. This is the least amount of band tension I have, and I wanted to try and hit 160 kilos. 120 moved well, but 40 kilos on a bench is a massive jump, and unfortunately it wasn't there on the day. So that's the first max effort I've failed in ages. Training's been going well recently, but I didn't overshoot it by that much because I went and re-attempted 157.5 kilos, just 2.5 kilos less, or 5.5 pounds less, and it was an absolute grind. So 160 definitely wouldn't have been there on the day, but managed to hit 157.5 kilos, which is still a big PR for me, and I was very happy with that. Then moving on to the first accessory here, I have overhead Swiss bar tricep extension. So I went at 55 kilos, which is really heavy for me. And here you'll see that on the first set, I failed a fourth rep even. So early on in my training cycles, I try and go heavier with my accessories, and then I drop the weight and go lighter for more reps later on. So as I'm going heavy this week, I was okay with just doing sets of 3. I think it's still going to provide great neurological adaptations to my triceps, and in general my muscle mass is okay, but my neurological drive needs work. I've been doing like bodybuilding style training a lot longer than I've been doing powerlifting and strength training, so I think my muscular base is all right, but actually I need to focus in general on heavier weights and developing a better neurological drive, because there are people way smaller than me who are so much stronger than me. So that is what I need to work on. But those 2 triples at 55 kilos, that's the heaviest I've ever gone on those Swiss bar tricep extensions with that close grip. I've done heavier with a wider grip, but it's much easier. So yeah, I was happy with those. Then continuing the theme of going heavy, here I have some close, slightly pronated mag grip lat pull downs at 240 pounds, which is the heaviest I've ever gone on lat pull downs. I think the joint heaviest, and I got 2 sets of 6, I think. So they were very challenging, but I literally used to just not be able to move that weight at all on lat pull down. So I was happy that I was actually able to get it moving and do 2 working sets of 6 there. That is a PR. Then moving on to the next accessory here, I did 50 kilo incline dumbbell press. So I think I only got sets of 6 here. So it's a 15-degree incline. If you saw my last upper workout, I tried to do these dumbbells on a 30-degree incline and couldn't kick them up into position. It was very frustrating. So I had to use some lift-offs, and I think I got a set of 4 and 5 on a slightly higher incline, but that is more challenging. And on this incline, to be honest, I wanted to try and get at least sets of 8. I've been feeling a little bit drained in my sessions. So this is basically like a week -1 for me. I normally do 3-week waves, but later on this week, I'm away seeing family. I am going to be able to train because I've got a small home gym, but I'm not going to be able to do my normal dynamic waves. So what I've basically been doing is just generic workouts. You'll see that the last 2 videos before this were just general up and lower rather than upper and lower dynamic. But it's meant that I've been doing a lot of maxes in a row without a deload week. And also I've just been training a lot and very consistently this year, and I think my body, to be honest, could do with a week that's a bit lighter. So to be honest, for the rest of this week, I'm just going to take advantage of the fact that I'm going to see my family, and I'm going to go a little lighter and easier. So the next accessory here was loo raises. So I went heavy on these, trying to stick with the theme of going heavy early on in a cycle. So I managed to get a set of 8 with the 15 kilo dumbbells on the first set. That is the most I've ever done. 15 kilos is the heaviest I've ever gone, but I've only been able to get sets of 6 before. So getting a set of 8 was great. And then on the second set, I got a set of 6, and then I decided to keep pumping up the delts by just doing some lateral raises to burn them out. And you'll see my delts just sort of slowly deplete into nothingness and lose energy. So they felt great, and I was happy to be able to hit that 8 rep PR at the 15 kilo dumbbells. Loo raises are such a sort of weak and hard exercise in general. It's very hard to progress them, so I was happy with that. Then moving on to the next accessory here, it was single arm dumbbell preacher bicep curls. Wow, that's quite a mouthful. So these went very well. I used 25 kilos, which is the second heaviest I've ever gone. I've been able to push recently to like 30 kilo dumbbells, but I was only getting like sets of 4 on the 30 kilo dumbbells, so I wanted to go a bit higher in rep. But although the 25 kilos are only 1 dumbbell down, you might think, oh, you're going from 30 kilos sets of 4, 25, you might only get like sets of 8. No, I was able to get 2 sets of 12 per arm. So this was another PR. The most I've ever got before was sets of 10 at this weight on this exercise, and the bicep strength has just massively come on since I've started training it. I find that biceps are definitely a strong point for me within my training. Like when I was a kid as well, like my physique was, I was one of the bigger kids in school and everything, and everyone goes, show us your bicep, and I was always the one with the biggest biceps, even though, you know, the rest of my physique, stuff like my chest, was absolutely non-existent. But biceps are definitely a strong point. I didn't train them for a few years. Once I was starting to get into powerlifting, for the first like 2 years, I didn't really train them. Because they're not directly necessary and needed for powerlifting, and I was focusing on bigger compound movements. However, when I started this series, I wanted to try and optimize my training, and I believe that the best way to train is to try and be a well-rounded strength athlete, a well-rounded athlete in general, which is why I've done like extra GPP sessions during this training cycles. It's also why I've been doing stuff like hip abductions and adductions on my lower days. They're not like strictly necessary for powerlifting. They're probably providing a small benefit, but the benefit might not be immediately seen or recognized ever, but it could be just generally physically preparing and strengthening your body so that you get injured less. I've noticed that when I wasn't training my biceps, I actually used to tweak my biceps on bench quite frequently. It would be as I was like unracking the bar and just trying to set my back into position. If the unrack was too high, I'd bring my shoulders forward, then I'd try and reset them backwards, and as I was sort of shifting side to side, some of the weight would go down one of the arms and it would tweak the biceps. Since I've started training my biceps and strengthening them, that hasn't happened at all. So that is a benefit of training, being a well-rounded athlete, that you don't immediately notice. Like I haven't really thought about that, to be honest, until I've been saying it right now. But I knew that trying to train and be well-rounded was always going to be a good thing. And the other thing for me is I'm passionate about strength sports in general. I might end up doing like a strict curl competition for fun because the bicep strength has come on so much. Or I might do like a strongman contest again where the biceps are used a lot. So right at the end there, by the way, I thought I might have slightly tore that left bicep. It failed the final rep and it felt like pretty painful for about 5 minutes, but I think it was just like the most minor strain. It's a little sore the days after this workout, but other than that, it's not anything major, luckily. So moving on to the last accessory here, I had twisting GHD sit-ups. So I said a while ago that I was trying to work on the obliques more, the side of your abs, and doing twisting movements is going to help target those because they're very important for bracing. So all of my ab training, pretty much until a couple of weeks ago when I said I wanted to do more oblique work, was just regular straightforward work. So like regular crunches, regular isometrics, regular cable crunches and stuff, which is great for working your rectus abdominis, which is your six pack, and your transverse abdominis, which is at the bottom, but you also have your internal and external obliques running down the sides, and strengthening them is very useful for when you're bracing because you're using all of your abs. But I also brace in particular outwards, like widthways as well as forwards into my obliques. I just find it very useful for being able to get a stronger brace. So that is why I'm training these here. On the first set, I managed to get 20 reps, so 10 per side per twisting. Then on the second set, I think I just got 8 per side, and you'll notice as it gets harder, I start to leave my arms like down by my hips. That's just to try and make it a little bit easier so the weight of my arms isn't up over my shoulders. I was really struggling, and my abs have been very sore since doing this over the days afterwards. So this is probably the hardest I've pushed my abs in a while, aside from on the ab roller. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of that wonderful stuff. Thanks for watching to the end, and I hope you have a great day.